My name is Tim, and in this video, I'm going to teach you an easy to follow 10-step process for playing the most beautiful chords on the piano at any playing level. The best place to get started is with this shortcut. So first, you want to play a C minor chord with your left hand. It can be any minor chord, but we're sticking with C minor, C, E flat, G. And then where your left hand thumb is, you want to place your right hand, and you want to play a minor chord built on that note, which would be G, B flat, D. And I want you to play all these notes together. Ooh, hear that? That's a pretty beautiful chord, I would say. It's called a minor ninth chord because it has a minor chord at the base, and the 9 comes in from the distance between the bottom note root and the top note, which is 9 notes away. Level 2, major ninth chord. So take the tip I just told you, right? You play a C minor, G minor, play them together, except this time what I want you to do is I want you to take the middle note of the C minor chord and raise it a half step, making a major chord. And then I also want this to be a major chord too. So we're taking the flat, B flat, and moving up to a B. Ooh, that one is a nice sounding chord as well. You can also play them an octave apart, give them a little bit more space to breathe, but I also feel like they sound pretty good clustered together. Level 3, fun patterns with the minor ninth chord. Quick, play the minor ninth chord. Oh, we just got it. Okay, now we're going to do something a little bit fun. So we're going to play this minor ninth chord, and then we're going to move down, and we're going to play the same minor ninth chord just built on G this time. So the notes will be G, B flat, D, and then D, F, A, all at once. So play the first chord again, and then play that next chord. First chord, second chord. We're just adding a little bit to it each time. Level 4, arpeggio exercises. Okay, this is where things finally start to get quite fun. So we're going to play that first chord we played again, that C minor ninth chord. Now this time what I want you to do is instead of playing the notes all at once, I want you to play them as an arpeggio. And what I would do is I would play the first 4 notes with your left hand, and then what you're going to do is you're going to play the same notes with your right hand, just beginning on that D, right? Because we got to have that D in there because that is the ninth. And I want you to play them notes separately like this. And then move up an octave. See? It's a beautiful little pattern you can do. You can even add it to the pattern we talked about before where we were playing this. Level 5, 6th chords. This one is quite easy. Play a C major chord with your left hand. C, E, G. Now we're going to be adding a 6th this time. So remember a 9th, right? So you have a root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, and the 9th is right here. So if we have root, 3rd, 5th, a 6th is right here. And you might be surprised if you play this chord. I'm just going to double it between the octaves. Ooh, that has a nice dreamy type of quality to it too. So 6 chords are quite easy, and they are a nice type of chord to add in to the mix. Level 6, 7th chords. There are several types of 7th chords you want to be aware of, and each of them has their own quality and type of sound to them. The first one is a major 7th chord. You're just going to play a major triad, C, E, G, on the bottom, and you're just going to add one note to it, which is B. Now for this chord to work, this B has to be a half step away from the root note. So remember the root note C in this case, at the bottom, and your 7th needs to just be one semitone or one note away from that C. And that one has the, I would say, the dreamy type of jazzy quality. Next type of chord is a dominant 7th chord, C, E, G, and then this time B flat. So the 7th this time has to be a whole step away from the note you started on, also called the root note. And this one has a real bluesy type of sound. In fact, when I play the B flat blues, what gives it its type of sound are these dominant 7th chords, and without them, it just would not sound the same. Now we're changing one note in this chord, and that is this middle note E. We're changing it to a flat. So the base of our chord now, which is the bottom three notes of the chord, is now a minor chord, specifically C minor, and we're just adding this B flat again up top. And this one has a good, it's kind of like in between, right? It's a little bit melancholy. It has a really pleasant, not very tense sound, but at the same time, it's a little bit darker in quality compared to the major seventh. And that's a different type of chord we'll get to in just a second. So now we're altering the chord one more note to bring us to a C, what we call a C half diminished seventh. And if you may notice, all these seventh chords are just one note away from each other, basically. So this is the half diminished seventh. The base of the chord is a diminished chord, which is a more tense sort of sound. And then we're just adding in the seventh. Beautiful chord to play around with for sure. Okay, we got one more type of seventh chord to talk about, and that is the fully diminished chord. You play C, E flat, G flat, and instead of B, you're playing B, not B flat, but B double flat actually. It looks like A, but it's actually B double flat, and this one has a really crunchy kind of tense sound. Maybe you won't be using this one so much as a beautiful chord, but important to know about it nonetheless. So I want to show you the power of seventh chords. And so what we're going to do is play this famous jazz piece called On Green Dolphin Street. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first line or so without any seventh chords, and then I'm going to play them with the seventh chords to see if you can hear the difference. And now with sevenths. So could you hear the difference? Well, the version with seventh chords definitely had a little bit more richness and flavor to it, and it's something that you can take into your practice. So if you're playing a famous type of piece and you just have chords in your left hand, maybe try adding some seventh chords in there and just see what happens. Level 7, line cliché. This one's one of my favorites, and you've heard it in music all the time, but we're going to apply it to the very first example we did. Quick, play that C minor ninth chord. Oh, we still got it. Now what I want you to do is I want you to play that chord, and then each time I want you to play the chord again, but I want you to slide down the pinky a note each time. And actually, you know what? We're going to move this up an octave. It just sounds a little bit better up top. That is what a line cliché is, where basically you have the same chord or very similar chords right one after the other, and the only difference is that the bottom notes, or even the top notes of the chord, are moving down in a line, and I believe it's called a line cliché because you've actually heard it in your songs all the time, and I'm going to prove it right now. Level 8, suspensions. A suspension is when you have a chord, let's just play C major for the heck of it, for fun. And then what we're going to do is we're going to temporarily suspend one of the notes over another note. And one of the most popular ones to do is what we call a 4-3 suspension. Remember in the beginning of the lesson I was telling you like the minor ninth chord? The reason it's called a minor ninth is you have a root, a third, away, 3 away, 5, 7, 9. Well, what do you think a 4-3 suspension is? Well, it's this. You're playing root, 4, 5. You're playing that first. I'm going to double it between each hand. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do what's called resolving it, where you're moving from the 4 to 3. And that's what we call a 4-3 suspension. You can actually use the suspensions with your minor and major ninth chords. Let's just take this major ninth chord, C, E, G, G, B, D, like that. What we're going to do is we're going to suspend over the 4, or the 3 for the 4. So instead of E, we're playing F. And then we're going to resolve it. And it has a really cool sounding of tension and release, which is really what suspensions are used for. So a lot of times in music, when we have a song, you're not just hammering on the same chord every time. You're actually changing chords throughout in a repeated pattern. And this repeated pattern is called a chord progression. And you can use the concept of chord progressions with what we already learned to create some pretty interesting sounding stuff. Let's take a look at the piano. So first we're going to play that C minor ninth chord. That is the chord of the day. But what I want you to do is I want you to split it up between octaves. So C minor down here, G minor up here. This is what we're going to do. You're going to play that chord, and then we're going to change chords. I want you then to play the same chord with your left hand, but I want you to change to an A flat major chord in your right hand. A flat, C, E flat. So try that. Back to the first chord. Next chord. Now what I want you to do with your left hand is move this G to an F. And then I want you to go back to the first chord again. So one more time. First chord. And then you're changing chords. And then we're moving to this F here. And as you notice, as we were moving between each of those chords, there's only a little bit of movement between each hand, right? We were only sliding up the right hand just a little bit, and then we were changing that left hand note, basically to an F from an E, I believe it, or E flat, I believe it was. And for those that are wondering, we're starting out playing a C minor ninth chord, and then we're going to an A flat major seventh chord. So just by changing that little bit, completely changes the chord. And then by changing this note to an F, it changes it into an F minor seventh chord. And then back to C minor ninth, excuse me. We have one more level to talk about, which is chord theory. But after that, I actually have a bonus tip that is definitely going to really help tie everything together. Level 10, chord theory. Now I want to talk about some concepts that I could have brought up throughout the lesson, but I didn't want to bog it down. So I'm going to put it here at the end, really to just give you more context on what we're learning so that you can more adapt and apply what we're learning to all your pieces and all the things you're doing. The first thing I want to talk about is consonance versus dissonance. So a consonance is a pleasant sounding chord, like a C major chord, even a C minor, or even a C minor ninth chord, although that one has a little bit of tense in it. But a consonance sounds pleasant, it's very stable, doesn't feel like it has to go anywhere, unlike this chord. Or let me play it. See how like when I just play that chord and leave it, it sounds unnerving even. It almost feels like it should do this. Ooh, hear that? And that's what we call resolving. So dissonance likes to resolve back to consonance. Remember when we had the 4/3 suspension? And that one had a crunch to it, right? And then when you resolve it, oh baby, it sounds so good, resolving those dissonant chords. I want to talk about the major and minor formula as part of our chord theory at the end here. Remember, we do have a bonus tip at the end. But what I want to say next is you can make a major chord build on any note by doing this. You play the bottom note, which is the root, right? And then what you need to do is you want to count up 4 half steps, not including that note. 1, 2, 3, 4. So your next note in the chord is an A sharp. And then from this note, you want to count up, not including that note, by the way, 1, 2, 3, and you play a major chord perfectly every time. So the formula is you hit a note, you go up 4, and then 3, and that's major. Guess what? Minor is even easier. You play a note, let's say G, you go up 3 this time, 1, 2, 3, and then you go 4. So the formula is reversed. It was 4 and then 3, and then minor is 3 and 4. And if you really have to know, diminished is 3 and 3, augmented is 4 and 4. And the distances between the notes are super duper important when looking at music theory, which is really all observing how notes interact with one another. Now you may be wondering, you talked about chord progressions, Tim. Where do chord progressions come from? Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you. So here we have the C major scale. It's basically telling you what notes exist within the key of C. And so if you start on C, all the notes in the key of C major are all the white key notes. It just has to do with the spacing between how the notes are with one another. For instance, if you start on G, you need to have an F sharp right at the end to maintain that major sound, because if you don't, it sounds a little bit off, doesn't it? So when you're playing a note or you're playing a major scale, there's a formula to it. It's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, with half step being the smallest amount of movement you can make on the piano, and a whole step is just 2 half steps put together. Now, this is where chords come from and chord progressions. So we have 7 individual notes in this scale, with the last note and the first note being the same. That's why you see 8 there, but 7 individual ones. And we actually have 7 individual chords we can use based on that, just by building triads on each note like this. And just like there are 7 individual chords or notes, there are 7 individual chords, with each of them having a number label. This is chord number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1 again. Now this is where it becomes important. The primary chords of a key, or the first chord, and we're going to circle them here. Boop. First chord, and then the 4th chord, and the 5th chord are the primaries. And this is what we call the most common chord progression in all of music. In fact, I played it earlier when I was talking about what if you had a piece with just consonant chords, and it would sound like that. It would just be all the primary chords, because those are just major chords. There's nothing really tense about them. This is how a key relates to chords and where chords and chord progressions come from. The last thing I want to talk about as part of chord theory are extensions, right? So we have, you may have heard me say the base of the chord is a minor chord, just meaning the bottom 3 notes, right? That bottom triad. And a triad is a 3-note chord, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out. So we have our bottom triad. That is what we call the base of the chord. And then anything above that, so root, 3rd, 5th is our triad, like 7th, 9th, 11th, 13th. Ooh, that sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Maybe not so much. Those are called extensions. So root, and then like anything beyond 5th is what we call an extension. So therefore, when we're playing the C minor 9 chord, go ahead, play it, quick. Oh, we still got it. So when you're playing that chord, just keep in mind that the base of your chord is minor, and the top 2 notes are extensions. And if you want to get into jazz or jazz theory or music theory, you're really going to have to understand that basic concept. Like I said, there's one bonus tip at the end that's really going to solidify your understanding of chords and playing piano in general. But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody that supported the channel over the years, from the regular viewers to people that are channel members to people that sign up for courses over on my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com, or even the moderators that moderate our communities. I just want to say thank you so much, because without your support, we wouldn't have been able to reach nearly as many people as we've had. So thank you so much. It's time for the bonus tip, and here it is. So in this lesson, we learned a lot about chords, a lot about notes, but there's a whole dimension, a whole world of music that we didn't even talk about that you could apply to these chords and really bring them to life. And I'm talking, of course, about rhythm. You need to check out this lesson right here to catch you up on all the basic rhythm things you need to know so that you can begin applying it to your piano playing, your chords, and anything. It's been your piano teacher, Tim, here, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Have a good one.